Vision Committee time, and we'd like to take the roll call, please.
Councilmember Dennehy,
Here.
Councilmember Schmisher,
Here.
Councilmember B. Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Stein. Here. Councilmember Tracy.
Here.
Councilmember Worthington,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Hamrick,
Here.
Mayor Smith.
Here. We have several of our department heads here today, and we are talking about ARPA fund possibilities, right?
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about ARPA funding. The city received $4.2 million in ARPA funding. A lot of that was allocated during the last budget year. But we still have some unallocated ARPA funds, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight. And you've got the memo in front of you. A couple of notes. For instance, the broadband, we did put that into the budget at 1.5 million. We're actually anticipating that that's going to come in somewhere around between 1.1 and 1.2. So there's a little bit of savings there that's kind of going back into that balance. At the retreat earlier this year, we talked about the radios for PD, so that's one that's been identified. And some of these things on the top of the top chart have already been through council, the VM licensing, network security hardware, and the security cameras and access control. Go ahead and go over to Tammy and talk about ARPA funding in general and what we've got on the projected list for the budget for 2023 or any ideas that we talk about.
So I guess let's talk about the requests that we've had come in for the budget for 2023. We've received the capital requests from departments, and we looked through those to see what we felt would be eligible for the ARPA funding. Because even though we are claiming lost revenue, we still have to use it in certain ways. Mary Pat, she's in the finance department with me. She's our accounting manager. She has been reading a lot of uniform guidance, so she knows a lot more about those ins and outs. Exactly. So so we have her here to help us with that. One of the big things that we're looking at is trying to replace our entire finance system, so our ERP. And so the costs that we're showing there at 150,000 was for the backbone of the finance program. And that's one-time costs. Those are not ongoing costs. We will have ongoing costs for licensing in the future, but we do not want to try to use ARPA to cover anything that would be ongoing. And then we also have the court system implementation shown at 45,000. We have not actually done formal RFPs for any of this, so these are our best guess. We also have the records system implementation. That's for the police department. We have 50,000 listed under ARPA because we do not know yet what the CRCA is going to be able to fund out of their grant. And so we're looking if there's hardware costs that we need to buy, that we would use some of that.
CRC, the Combined Regional Communications Agency.
Sorry about that. That's okay. We also put in there the SCADA upgrade, and that has to do with our water treatment plant. And Travis can answer questions about that, and so can Elijah. Then also we did put off our filter media replacement this year, and that was partly because we had another major project come up, an emergency repair that we had to do, and so we diverted some of those funds for that. And of course, with like everything else, costs have gone up substantially. After we had submitted memo and after this weekend, we started thinking that we had that power failure, which impacted the police department's ability to do some things. It it took down basically our ability to actually have the computers communicating. And so we thought that a good use also for the ARPA could be potentially the backup generator for City Hall. We did get some rough costs for that, and we just received those today. If we were to only look at doing the critical areas, which means keeping our servers up and running, and then also the co-location for the broadband building, we're looking at over $400,000. If we were to try to do our entire building, it would be about 670,000. So those are some of the things that we're looking at. We can't fund all of those through ARPA because we have approximately $1,055,000 to allocate, and the requests are more than that.
Couple of questions, if both of them stay in my mind long enough to ask. Could you say just a little more about the court system? Is that a new database for the court operations, or what is that?
Yeah, so I can answer some of those. The municipal, it's not a procedure right now, so a lot of what they're doing has no electronic
Oh,
system.
boy.
It causes a lot of staff time to be wasted through manual processes, and there's not any good workflow or procedure between when they start and they finish in any kind of integration with the police department or any law enforcement. So with the anticipation that the police department will be upgrading their electronic records management system, it would be highly recommended that the court also moves to an electronic system. So those two things, while not together, should be
Right, got it.
for processing.
That, yeah, I do
On,
realize.
on that issue, excuse me, does Spillman provide such a system, or is it, we'd have to go to a different vendor?
So we did not get any original interest in our RFI that we put out from Spillman. We did from Tyler. So seeing that CAD and CRCA is moving with Tyler.
Tyler.
They would provide an integrated system that would naturally integrate with all of the procedures and workflows that the records management system will have.
That's a ballpark figure then, that they have.
Correct, yeah, we haven't gone out to official RFP. It's a high level overview. We haven't dove into the weeds to say into what type of modules or processes. that
Did we get that number from them, or is it, did we just,
We did get the number from Tyler.
Okay.
That's what we used to plug in.
Okay. thanks.
And this is not the whole, this is just.
This is just a one-time cost. It
Right.
doesn't do
Yeah.
anything.
What about the court systems record software? Can you tell us a little more about that? Or not the court, but the CCBD's records.
Yeah, so as part of the grant that the CRCA has obtained for moving computer-aided dispatch systems, the local law enforcement agencies that are underneath the CRCA's umbrella will have to migrate to a compatible records management system. As of right, it has not been decided how much funding is going to cover the upfront costs for the police department specifically
Grant funding is in from a different grant.
from the CRCA directly. So we plugged in some of our equipment for citation and some of the modules that the police department was looking at through Tyler, which the dispatching center has already decided. So that's kind of why we use some of those numbers specifically to plug in the budget.
Just for the benefit, of the public, Tammy or Ryan, whoever wants to go, can we just kind of define ARPA and let everybody know how we got this grant? I mean, when you're looking at $1 million, the public's usually generally curious on how we got it and how it's being spent.
Okay, it's the American Rescue Plan, and it is funds from the Treasury Department directly related to the costs. It's only for government, state, municipal governments. And there's this one awful calculation, to figure out how much, each government gets, called a revenue loss calculation. And otherwise you can get the standard amount, and that's the way we're.
And we did not have to apply for this. This
Right.
was part of basically the recovery efforts. And we received a portion of the funding last year. And then we received the rest of it this year because they divvied it out over a 2-year period. And our total allocation was the $4,203,824.
Awesome.
Unlike most grants where you get reimbursed, get the money up, front, government gets the money up front, and you have to interpret all these rules to figure out what you can really spend it on.
Right, and while most of us can that, we are live on Facebook,
Yes.
and I just want to make sure that there's
Good idea.
public understanding of where this came from and how it's being utilized.
Just a few more details, and not to get into the weeds, but I think they're important details. So as Mary Pat mentioned, we're taking the standard deduction, which covers our full allocation of the 4.2. Even though we're the standard deduction, we still have reporting to do.
Right.
So a lot of the strategy of what we're looking at in certain projects are some of these bigger dollar amounts. So the reporting, focuses on these individual projects, and these are projects that probably other have done, would be an impact to the fund in order to do them.
And there is compliance that has to be made on how most of it's spent, correct?
Correct. And then the other piece I want to mention is that, again, even though we're taking the standard deduction, the funds have to be encumbered by the end of 2024, and they have to be spent by the end of 2026.
What other requests did you receive from the departments?
As in just for the capital items, we had our standard requests, the street improvements and stormwater projects, the water line. Some of it's just our normal requests, and these seemed like these were ones that were out of the ordinary. And things that we haven't necessarily been able to fund in the past because of the cost, the implementation costs for doing the finance system, at $150,000. That's pretty huge.
Well, and other take part in things, so sometimes we have to abandon some of these things because of priorities and.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think, the one that's on the list that I think is unique and it's extremely important is the SCADA funding, and Elijah and Travis can talk a little bit about what SCADA is and what it does, why we need to replace ours.
Yeah, so, the systems that control the water treatment plant can be divided into kind of two sectors, if you will. There's the technology that actually connects to the physical hardware that runs the plant on the operational side is, first and foremost, is outdated. Outdated to a point where we can no longer find replacement hardware, which obviously is a critical concern, because if we don't have replacement hardware for anything that controls the physical infrastructure of the plant, it becomes very hard to manage. The other side of the control system on the information management side, for the IT side, that is what controls the technology that controls the physical hardware. So it's kind of a two-phased project where we need to replace not just technology running the machinery, but also the management of that technology. Right now, we have no physical redundancy nor backup solution for the IT side. That's a critical concern. And in the event that we lost the technical management of those controlling pieces of technology, the plant again would be very difficult to keep running. So
How old is the,
It was replaced in 96.
and maybe,
Existing
I
cables were installed in
was still when it was just like.
I wouldn't say that, but.
If you wouldn't say that, that would take.
that has a lot to do with the cost of that project as well. That's why that is a higher cost. Not only are we replacing technically two different systems that would have been one management system, but it is aged so far.
You appreciate that stuff on the books?
Yes, we do.
Just
Is there anything else that
I would say it's been
is that
long
outdated?
gone off.
I mean, that's 96, that's
As
30
far
years.
as,
97.
yeah, on the technology side, there's not in the city. That's the system.
And as far as like with the power outage, you guys are good with generators and all that stuff?
No,
Yeah.
to be honest, no, but we don't see power outages that last long enough that becomes a real critical thing. I mean, we'd have to have power outages for days for that to become a real worry, which I'm not saying it's not a worry.
Right.
That's the time frame we'd be looking
I did want to go back to my other question, which was back on the idea of a generator for City Hall or for at least the critical areas. I'm trying to remember if, or maybe I just don't know if that's been talked about before, been budgeted before, has there ever been one, or just kind of what the history is there.
So
And let me jump right into that question too, because what's in the enclosure at the end of the building? That's not generated.
That's the chiller for the HVAC system.
That's the chiller for the.
Yeah.
A little different.
Okay.
The jail cell.
I thought it was.
We like chills. Younger.
the last couple of years, we have put money in the budget, but it's only to be spent if we can get a grant. And we have not been able to find a grant that will fund a generator for us. And so we did look and we were verifying that because the generator helps run the essential functions of the government, that it should be an eligible expense to use under ARPA. But we have looked for the last, two years
This would be the third.
to try to get.
Could we use our funds to match a grant from somewhere else?
You cannot use ARPA grant funding to match federal grants. So even if you received it from the state, if the state has $1 of federal funding in it, it is considered federal funding. So it would not be able to be used. That is the issue we ran into with the radios. Because we were going to try to use some ARPA funds to match on a grant we were trying to get for radios, and we could not do it. Because it was federal funds in there. That is one of the items in there that is very explicit that you cannot use it to match any federally funded grants. And you can't use it to run federally funded programs, even if it is because of lost revenue.
So no piggybacking, basically.
Correct.
So Amy has a question.
Thank you. I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit about any requests that we got from outside of city departments.
Can you start that again? I'm sorry.
Sure. I was just wondering if you could speak a bit about any requests that you got from outside of the city.
So this is just the normal budget process, so this was not put out outside of this, outside of the city.
Well, we
Th-
did have
this-
2 requests made for ARPA funds, one from the fire department and one from those officials. And then I don't see any of those requests.
Right, and that, is just speaking this round, or this budget cycle, but yes, earlier in 2022, we did have, or maybe 21, we had the request from the fire department. Those officials.
So the first part of the money that you've already used was handled for those requests or not
Well, we
down.
didn't really address it. We just said we would talk about it in.
So it's going to depend on what Boats and Fishes had asked for. If it is something that would be eligible for us to do. If they are doing it as they need more funding to provide food distribution, that is not something that is in our normal course of doing of our government function.
I think
So-
it was more the lines of helping to get capital money to finish
Yeah,
one of the phases at their emergency shelter.
Now, I'm not sure about the eligibility of that. And that's
I
what we'd
can-
have to look
I
at.
can find out.
Okay, yeah, no, I would like to find out about that. And I think the fire department, they received money from the county and they seem to be well on their way.
I was gonna
I-
say, not to
I-
get too into it, but the county kind of did their own thing with their ARPA funds and did a lot of local grants.
I don't think that the county funded the entirety of the fire department's request, so I think it might be worth looking at that as well. I just want to make sure if this is kind of our ARPA prioritization meeting that we're looking at all of the requests that have come in.
Well, just kind of off the top of my head, I'm a little hesitant in that we didn't do some kind of solicitation process. So just because we did get some requests, if we really had communicated to the public saying, we'd like to know what you would like to apply for, that would be different and we'd be able to compare apples to apples. So just something.
Yeah, as hard as that, we don't even have enough money left to cover some of our unique long-term expenses.
So did we, what? Was 4.3 million, that was our total,
4.2.
the total pot?
Yes.
Okay, so did we solicit, did we solicit input from the outside when we first started the process?
No.
So we're just doing it for what's left.
We didn't have a big pot to.
Yeah, The county had 11 million or more.
Yes.
They had right around 9, maybe just under 9. Yeah, just to answer that question, yeah, and to go to the mayor's point, there were a lot of needs. Broadband was one that we heard from the community, and that's why that one was on the list, is as a community type project.
So if that's something the community really wanted, where we. We do have an RFP.
Broadband, we're narrowing down and negotiations.
Okay, so then that would take all of it, that's left, the broadband.
There's like
Not out of the
$39,000 difference.
That's already.
What's here?
Yeah.
That's already in the.
Yeah.
It is.
Okay, so
So everything on the top list. is
Everything on
already
there,
in
the
that.
bottom list is just what's things we got left.
This is the balance, and then these are some of the high priority items.
And our ARPA funding, the ARPA funding to broadband is something the county's doing too, if I understand.
That's my understanding as well.
I'm curious for that 200,000 for the water department. You said, there's an emergency expense, so you thought, well, we just add on this one. Why can't we just use some regular funding in the upcoming years?
So part of that is, when we got a budgetary estimate from the company that did this back in '96, we did, because we was funded at 200,000 this year, and that was the estimate. So it's 200,000 to do all 12 filters. When I started doing kind of the pre-bid, numbers crunching to make sure that was still accurate, the number I came back was 900,000. So we tried, and now it's jumped that much. Largely due to fuel costs, all that has to be shipped from California, I believe. Because it's largely the anthracite coal, which is kind of a specialized media. That, is needed for the filters, so. We would like to very much do it in-house, but at 900,000, it becomes more difficult.
So this 200 was the difference?
200 is to help out.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not asking for the whole thing.
Is there any potential that $900,000 will go down? Because that's a huge spike.
Sure.
Fuel costs hopefully are continuing to go down.
Fuel costs are one thing, but Travis and I were talking about right before the meeting, you know, as coal-fired power plants decrease and, you know, coal mines in general are kind of decreasing. One of those unintended consequences is the less availability of the materials that might be needed. So it causes a supply and demand to where the price goes up.
Is that a product that we have to be dependent on, or there are alternatives?
There's not alternatives for the type of filters that we have. So if we went away from this type of media, we have to go through an entirely different filtration system.
And then the cost could be.
Yeah, you're talking about RO, that sort of.
So speaking of increased cost for things, I know, I mean, that's part of the reason why Rose Avenue, we're helping with stormwater for that. What about like the pedestrian highway crossing? I mean, we're just getting ready for RPF for that, but there's a really good chance that that's gonna come out from the and other projects too, that are capital projects. Have there been conversations about prioritizing which is the most important as far as?
And that's where you start to get into what Tammy was talking about earlier. You know, the CDOT project for Highway 50 is, you get CDOT funds, which they got from the federal government. So they're coming out.
How big a generator do you need for this building?
400 kilowatt for the entire building.
400 kW.
And remind me, how much was the estimate for,
670,000.
and how often have you been out of power that would mean?
Roughly half a dozen to a dozen times annually at a couple hours to 6 hours per event. We have noticed that this downtown area, specifically Main Street and City Hall, is down quite a bit longer than the rest of the town. So when we experience a power outage, it lasts longer. Unfortunately, this is our priority critical data center. When this building is offline, the rest of the town.
Do we know why that is? Is it older equipment on their side, on Black Hill
I
side?
don't have any insight to that, unfortunately.
Putting my utility hat back on. We should be talking to Black Hills saying, we as a city should not be having to invest this much money
To generate.
to be able to keep us working. And has any of those things been approached with Black Hills at all? Not from your level. Well, you know,
So you're saying that we have to, to get grant money for generator, it has to be matched. Is that right? There's
No.
match.
Well, in the past, that's what we've tried to do is get grant money. That we would match with general fund. You know,
we have
our is an opportunity because we haven't been able to find grant money. But
We had identified a couple of FEMA grants, tried to look at. The qualification for this project was not met because if you are to receive FEMA grant funding for backup power, it would have to be mobilized and not installed to the building for a permanent installation. And also not of that size. So for the last 2+ years, we've had people luck identifying available grants for a permanent installation to the municipality.
So from a staff's point of view, where would you prioritize a generator versus having a SCADA upgrade? I mean, providing water is even more
SCADA,
essential.
I've been with the SCADA first.
Put the SCADA first and then talk to Black Hills. See it, you know.
I just told her to put that on the agenda for Monday. I know I won't be there but yeah. It's
So
important.
we also have the ERP. I know the finance department has been wanting to update their software for many years now. And a lot of the reports that we've requested are needed, which is not even possible. Do you want to talk a little bit about?
So our finance system was, it seems like 1996 and 1997 were years when they invested in these type of things, because that is, from what I can tell, when we went online with ADG and had the same system since then. It is very difficult to get information out. It's just really not user friendly. And so there's a lot of staff time that is used to pull multiple reports to create one report. So it's not as simple as, just being able to click and say, oh, you get this, this, and this. It's okay, I have to run this report to get this report to get this, and then,
I forgot to do this.
yeah, and then take it to Excel unless you don't mind having it look like a dot matrix. Because if you notice the monthly financial statements that you get, those are directly out of ADG. We used to take additional time, but I felt that it wasn't a good use of my staff time to move it into Excel and get it all prettied up, and it wasn't worth, their time was more valuable doing something else than making the report look
And I
pretty.
assume ADG is a program.
Yes, that's all program.
So
Yes.
is there more to upgrading that software than just getting pretty documents?
Oh, yes.
Can you please expand?
Speed of.
Right, so a lot of it is going to be the ability to get data out of the system in an easier manner, in a way to have it integrate more so with the other departments. We're hoping that we can get a system that we don't have to have one thing for City Hall, another program over at the Parks Department, another one at, the various departments. Our functionality primarily is ADG, that the departments have other programs they use to do some of the
You don't
finances,
interface.
and they do not
We
interface.
put together an RFI to get information from, a request for information from providers. Elijah, how many different software programs? We asked them to try and incorporate.
We have attempted to request information on practically every software program that the city operates today as part of the ERP system, which individual pieces of software totaled well over 30. So, reporting and making sure that we can get our data out of the system is a good priority. I would say one of the biggest feature sets of a true ERP system is the integration for departments like Tammy was saying. If you consider, we're discussing the municipal court system, and moving them over to an electronic system. When they take payments for fines or fees, then that has to be manually entered by the finance staff. So that's a manual process of dedicating staff time and essentially just a public process. If we can add a system that was a true ERP, that can integrate those systems together and automate them. Same thing with our cemetery management, our parks management across the board.
Increases the risk for error or worse.
Very much.
Right.
Absolutely.
And is the water billing out of your system?
Yes, it's also out of ADG, and part of the issues with the system is things have changed over the years, and the system has not been able to keep up with changes. Yes, we can email a statement, log in and kind of see their account, but some of all our other processes are still very, very manual with it. And even on the customer side is, we do have that online payment system. But again, when you go look at it, it's still very antiquated. And, even so, like, you'll see some of the reports that the county has done from their financials when they have their sales tax graphs, and we've started doing some of those there. As far as I know, they use Tyler, and they can actually click a couple of buttons and get that report. We can't. We basically take the data out of ADG, put it in graphs, put it in Excel to create graphs to then, get it out. You can also, I don't think with ADG, we can have some of the transparency where we can have things going onto our website to show the list of checks that are being issued, where people can go out, citizens can go out and actually see some of those things and to drill down into that. We don't have that ability right now.
That's something that would just happen on.
Yeah, we can set some of those things up. And when we're going through our budget process, there have been questions that, last year it's like, well, when are we going to get a new book? We've made all these changes. Well, if we make a change in the budget, it's not just changing it in the finance program, it's taking it from the finance program into Excel to get it changed there, and then making sure that all of your sheets are tying together to make sure that it's there. So it's cumbersome, and it's just very, very
Errors, too.
it's just,
There's
you're
lots
right.
of room for-
Yeah, exactly.
So what about stormwater that we had to like help with those for stormwater? We didn't get to do the WPA ditch. We don't have a department head to advocate for that. Where do you see the WPA ditch?
As far as the priority listed, I don't think there would be enough money to cover the WPA. If you did a big project like the SCADA project, I just don't think there'd be enough money to make it happen.
How much was originally budgeted for WPA?
Do you remember that?
So that was a whole committee that did this
I
prioritization.
will have to look that up.
I need the context.
It was,
What's the WPA? What is the WPA?
it is,
Progress.
Well, that I know.
What's that?
What's
The
the
one that we're talking about is, it runs down, through the channel over by Colorado Quarry.
Okay.
so
Okay.
when we increased stormwater funding, we got a bond. And it was to do projects. And we wanted to do something in every section of town. So we did the Rose Avenue project, we did Dawson, we did 15th Street, and we were supposed to do the WPA. And there was a huge process to decide what projects we should do and, to make it fair to all over, all King City. But Rose ate that budget big time. A lot of the changes that the citizens, well, the ditch owners and some of the property owners were demanding to be made. And now there's no money for that section. There's also some streets that people would like to see paved or more money available for water lines underneath some of these streets, because a lot of our streets that need to be fixed can't be fixed because the water lines are a lot of money. I mean, there's just a lot I think we need to make sure we give it
Well, yeah.
just not.
Well, and the thing is that these that are listed here are actually great for the community as a whole, but you can't see them. And so I think you're probably trying to get to the point of where it's something that's visual to be able to hang your hat
Your
on.
ARPA money.
Yeah. We didn't just use it internally, we were able to try and help you direct, so.
One of the other issues that we run into with ARPA is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mary Pat, but I do not think that you can use ARPA funds for road projects.
We're using.
Yeah.
For certain water
Yeah,
projects.
water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure, not roads.
Yeah, but I'm saying that we can spend it on, but I mean, in some ways we are spending it on water. Potentially.
So, a lot of, what you're talking about, some of the different water line projects. We're trying a different strategy with this budget cycle. I know Travis, you talked about doing some smaller projects north of downtown and doing those in-house to try and save money. You know, talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, the strategy we're gonna try to take next year is to use our crews to lay smaller water lines that we can do in-house. And so we can have some savings, you know, not have to pay a contractor and that sort of thing. And then to able, with my understanding, we come in later and fix those side streets. So hopefully we'll be able to get more linear feet of pipe put in the ground with us to make them work.
Well, side streets are awesome, but some of our major street or arterial streets are the ones that,
Well, understood, but when we're talking water mains, then, you know, it is just as important to do those side streets because it's not the streets, it's the water mains that are becoming important because some of our transmission lines go through side lanes, so don't necessarily follow main roads.
okay. All right, well, council, what do you think? We got our list here.
Excuse me, I can answer
Sure.
your question about roads and bridges.
Sure.
And I sort of had it backwards. If they pay for a capital project, is that correct?
If my family is me,
You're
right,
at,
I'm a little large. But I thought it helped pay for their,
Some of the expansion.
some of their expansion.
I don't believe that that would be covered. They can mitigate hardship, technical and assistance to mitigate negative economic impacts of the pandemic. And based on these reasons, decreased revenue and financial insecurity, increased costs, capacity to weather financial hardship, and challenges covering payroll, rent, or mortgage. This could be more like for their everyday operating expenses.
So that would also apply to the fire district's request as well.
And I don't even know, if we give money to the fire district at all.
now, if I were loaves and fishes, I would turn it around and say I need to expand because of the pandemic has more people that now need shelter. So,
Yeah.
but if it's written in black and white,
If we were. if-
Could I ask a follow-up question on that? I guess I'm a little confused because I know the county gave ARPA funds for the fire district and gave ARPA funds to a lot of local nonprofits. Do we know, do they just have different ARPA rules than we have? Or are all of the rules the same for local government entities that received ARPA funds?
They're all the same. What did they give money for the nonprofits for?
Oh, I wouldn't know that level of detail.
Right.
And there were also some special districts, fire district and park center water, I think. got
Yeah,
money.
they got money.
So I have no idea.
Yeah, the park and
The rec.
recreation department also received money as well for playground equipment.
That probably, well, that would probably go under public sector capacity. So there probably are some things you could share specifically for.
The thing with the fire district is that their need is so huge that what we have left to give it just, I don't think it would really make any difference for them, whereas that could be a huge difference for our citizens here in Kansas.
If we were to get a generator, where would we put it?
The anticipation is on the sidewalk here on the west side of the building.
So I'm not on the west side of the building, so there have to be some parking spaces sacrificed.
Most likely a couple.
The to have a generator, a backup generator like that, it would likely be diesel.
Yes.
That, it would be natural gas.
Yes.
talk to Atlas about a rebate.
That's a good point. So down the Black Hills Route and see what's there.
And that's the thing for generator, we have to base, even if we chose the water upgrade, what's left still wouldn't be enough. For
Right.
So Travis, could you just give us an idea of if this current system you have fails because it's so old or you have problems with it, how would that impact your operation?
Dip into the budget, right? We'd have to dip into the budget.
Yeah, I mean, it would,
Reserves.
yes, it would be an emergency purchase.
But how would your guys, do the plant?
All hands
You'd
on
run
deck.
the plant manually for an
Uh-huh.
indefinite amount of
Look at
time.
here and this.
Right. I think that if we look at this, because we have limited amount of money. And left, I mean, it's practically nothing compared to what everything costs, you know. What's going to happen with the people who live in this town that get city water? I mean, and if for some reason you don't have enough staff to keep up with it, and you can't do it indefinitely, I think that's a real mission critical, right?
And I said it's a savings to our water payers or water users, because to do a project like this, normally we'd probably have to issue a bond or something, and we'd have to, or at least increase our water rates to pay for it. So this is a savings.
It's either that or you take it out of reserves, and do fewer water line projects for the next couple of years.
I'm comfortable with the list in front of us. Especially courts, PD, water, finance. I think those are all important things. There is like $139,000 difference. If I did the math right. So we couldn't cover everything that's on this list. I don't know how we prioritize what's here, but
No, I kind of feel like waiting on the can we wait on the filter media and see where we land?
If you were asking me if I had to choose between one of my projects, I would definitely put SCADA on the phone.
Utility wise, I'm very
I know
familiar
that
with
it's-
SCADA and boy, that's a biggie.
I know it's not much, but if we took that 200,000 and just gave you what was left, is that helpful or is that
Oh, absolutely.
okay?
One thing as well on the SCADA upgrade, we're anticipating it being between what, 650 and 750. So once we actually can go out to bid for it, we'll have some solid numbers. So there might be some.
I'm just
savings
afraid
with
that everything right now in the state of the world
Correct.
is going to move to the high end.
Yep.
So
And
I
that's,
think we need to prepare for
That's why
that.
you have the high end.
Well,
yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Well, this is gonna be like 1996 and 1997, where there was some big opportunity back then to upgrade, and now's our opportunity. 26 years later.
We're not gonna have a pot like this for a long time, like that, that's, outside of.
We hope not.
What's
regular
nice
stuff.
is this is all long.
Yes, we hope that,
Yeah.
we hope that,
Yeah.
we don't have reason for it, but we need it.
Any other questions from council or?
I do have one question. How often do ARPA funds get allocated to municipalities?
Could probably.
Okay.
This
This
is
is it.
pandemic.
Once in a lifetime?
Yeah.
The other thing to look for is, I have no idea about how there's any potential funds coming out of some of the newer legislation at the federal or.
Yeah, we're very closely following the jobs. The programs that are coming out of that. I know Brandy and Travis have been looking at that for, lead and copper line replacements and things like that. So there are opportunities for other things, not necessarily these types of capital projects.
So is there a thumbs up for the list as it is?
I'm good with that.
I think it's
I
necessary,
do too.
Yeah.
what's on this list.
Another question here, because you got. Program. Out there. Specific for municipalities and stuff, just to make, what And stuff, 'cause I've
Tammy,
done-
send it to National GFOA, you're gonna have to remind me what GFOA stands for.
Government Finance Officers Association.
All right.
And, you know, I spoke to several vendors there and encouraged them to submit to our RFI.
Great.
As a matter of fact, I think we created a QR code. with those.
So, created. So anybody that goes to a conference and wants to give out information about our bids, it just takes them straight to our bid page.
Oh, great.
And so it's, yeah, and so it was something that the vendors are like, never seen this.
Oh, that's right.
So it was just a good thing. And so we had quite a few people download our RFI. We had a few, yeah, we had a
Wow.
few responses, but it was pretty in-depth. We're anticipating, you know,
Evaluate.
No, if we have two departments that are having to go with another provider, it's going to be very difficult to have a complete integration possibly, or a smooth integration if we're with something different. We can be on different platforms with the same company because they have different, levels. They have a small program and then they have a larger one. So if it's a small one and they have a larger one for platform is they should still integrate. So that's. And
I would like to point out too that a lot of these projects that you see in front of you, it's not like we started this now. We've been looking for years. We've reached out to different municipalities, different government agencies, specifically with the police departments. This was a project we almost pulled the trigger on a couple of years ago, and now we're back to it again. So we've put a lot of forethought into what we're looking at, what we think will fit our needs the most.
We didn't have an opportunity to hear from Amy. Amy, do you want some final input? Is there a thumbs up from you? Or what are your feelings?
Oh, sorry, the sound has been going in and out pretty badly for the last 10 minutes or so, so I haven't been able to hear all of the discussion.
That's frustrating feedback to get.
I know from being on a meeting remotely with these devices, that if people are farther away from them, sometimes if they're not speaking up, it's hard to hear, so.
Oh, we might have to reevaluate around the table.
No,
It's
no.
been a lovely conversation, yeah.
You all don't have voices like I do.
Maybe need some more speakers.
I think we have a unique scenario with this setup because we haven't had this specific problem before, right?
That was a kind of good point.
I think this
I
might
had
be
problems
big
with one.
issue for this same setup.
The feedback is new too. We haven't
Yeah.
had it before, right?
yeah, you keep hearing stuff.
We'll
Right.
troubleshoot that.
Okay, yeah, let's do that because we would like it to be successful for everybody. Okay, well. Sounds like there's been consensus. Let's,
So next steps are RFP.
This all good, we're working on the budget book now, so this will help solidify what we put into the budget book. And yeah, RFPs and preparing for the next budget cycle, all that stuff will go on as well.
And what were the dates again? We have to allocate it by 24 and spend it by 26.
End of 24 and 26.
We'll probably hear more at the retreat.
You'll hear more about the overall budget asks, what's coming in at the retreat. And then, our charter says that council will have the budget book by October 1st, so you will have the budget book by October 1st.
okay. All right, well, this meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.